You're listening to Retail Disrupted, a podcast that explores the latest industry developments and the trends that will shape how we shop in the future. I'm your host, Natalie Berg. According to Zebra Technologies, 78% of store associates think that customers often know more than staff. 78%. It's a stat that really shouldn't surprise us. Shoppers today are hyper-informed, and when they come into a store, they are demanding meaningful engagements. So the question is your frontline team equipped to keep up? This is just one of the topics I'm going to be discussing alongside Zebra Technologies and Retail Gazette in an upcoming webinar, From Chaos to Clarity: Transform Frontline Comms and Take Back Control Through Technology. The webinar is on July 16th, and I would love for you to join us. Click the link in the show notes to secure your spot today. On today's episode, I am speaking to Ahti Heinla. Ahti is the co-founder and CEO at Starship Technologies. Previously, he was one of the founders and developers of Skype. Ahti and I met up in central London a couple of weeks ago to talk about autonomous delivery. We talked about Skype's legacy in transforming modern global communications. And I also asked Ahti if he agrees with Elon Musk that in the future, robots are going to be babysitting our kids. You will have to listen to the end for Ahti's answer. Okay, before we move on though, let me tell you a little bit more about Ahti Heinla. In 2013, he designed a sample retrieval robot to compete in a NASA contest for Mars missions. Armed with that experience, Ahti and his co-founder, Jonas Friis, who is also one of the Skype co-founders, they realized there was a huge opportunity to disrupt a delivery industry that had yet to be revolutionized by technology. They set to work creating a last-mile robotic delivery solution, which is when Starship Technologies was born. Founded in 2014, Starship now operates in more than 100 service areas worldwide, and its robots have completed more than 8 million deliveries. The company has headquarters in Tallinn, Estonia, which is where Ahti himself is from. Ahti, welcome to the podcast. It's such a pleasure to be able to sit down with you here in London to learn more about Starship and how you're disrupting the world of delivery. To kick us off, can you tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to start the business?
Thank you for having me here. I'm really excited to be talking here to this audience. In terms of my background, my upbringing was in a family of two computer programmers in Soviet Estonia. So in Soviet Union, or Estonia occupied by Soviet Union in the 70s and 80s. And then my computer programming came from my mother. So my parents were computer programmers. They met at the workplace, had children, including me. And my mother at one evening, came home and said that, oh, well, I'll teach you something new, just like, parents do, and started teaching me computer programming. And turns out I was reasonably good at it, and it became my profession, and I started developing computer games at high school, and then went over to more like internet startups and so forth, including Skype and then Starship. But that's a long story.
Well, I want to ask you about Skype just briefly before we come on to Starship, because Skype has, of course, been in the news a lot recently because of the announcement that it's being shuttered by Microsoft. It really feels like the end of an era. And there's been this outpouring of nostalgia on social media because Skype was just so fundamental in shaping the way that we communicate today. What do you hope its legacy will be in the history of tech and communications?
So Skype was a particularly successful startup, particularly successful company that succeeded in doing something that the startups really want to do. They want to change people's behavior, change how people relate with things in the world. And in Skype case, we changed how people communicate to each other over long distances. So when we started the company, we also had a lot of people telling us that we are crazy and this is not going to work. And, phones already exist, so why build this? And now, of course, people are having video calls and other communication via computer all the time. And, our smartphones are actually computers as well. So I think we have successfully transformed the world in that sense. It turned out that, we were the first to really popularize this. But turns out there were other products out there as well, and we that followed our lead effectively. And we had phenomenal success and sold the company just a couple of years after we had founded the company. And new owners and everything sold to Microsoft again and so forth. It ended up, not being forever as a company. But I think the legacy of Skype to some extent is forever, and there is also this concept called Skype Mafia of all of the people who met building Skype and who enjoyed success and got their professional experience at Skype. So there's a whole network of people which is fairly influential in Europe in particular.
Including your co-founder at Starship, right?
Exactly, including, Janus Fries, including me, including Ahti Heinla, who, is an investor now, who founded Skype, who founded Wise, and then became an investor and invested in Starship as well, and is our board member and so forth. So there's a whole network of people and companies, loads of companies and startups, started kind of on the ashes of Skype, so to speak.
Great. So let's talk about your robots. And I think the first thing our listeners will want to understand is the customer experience. What does a typical robot delivery look like?
Mm-hmm. So we have made it very easy for people to use and very easy for retailers to integrate our solution. A little bit the similar way as Skype was, because Skype was built on a technological idea, which is voice over IP, that instead of analog phone lines, this would be the computer would translate your voice into bits and then transport these bits over an internet connection. That technological idea existed also before Skype, but we were the first ones to put out a product that was actually easy to use. It's a little bit similar with the robots. It's one thing to build the robot, but the other thing to make it really easy to use for everybody who needs to use it. So it works in such a way that, we as a company, Starship, we own the fleet of the robots. And we deploy it in cities, and we work together with the retailers. And retailers typically integrate our robot delivery option into their e-commerce platform, typically. We have our own e-commerce platform as well, our own app, but at scale deployments, it's typically we integrate with the retailer's e-commerce platform. So the order comes in via the e-commerce platform. The consumer uses whatever app or website that the retailer uses to get online orders, and places an order, and selects the delivery. And there could be an option that's robot delivery, or it could be that the robot is the only option.
But the consumer knows at that point that they're going to see a robot.
Yes, the consumer typically knows at this point, and then the order is picked and packed at the grocery store. Mm-hmm. And we typically work with the convenience grocery stores that are, quite frequent in the cities. So typically we deliver from the nearest grocery store, which is typically about a mile away or half a mile away. And the order is picked and packed, by the store, typically by the store employees, who otherwise, are either at the cash register or putting stuff on the shelves. It's picked and packed by them, and the robot shows up at the outside of the store, like immediately at the door. So that's an advantage of having a robot that drives on the pavement, not like a self-driving car that needs to find some parking space somewhere. So the robot's parked right outside the door. So the store employee goes out and puts the bags into the robot, and the robot drives off. And the robot gets to the consumer, and consumer can track the delivery usually in the same way as human courier. And our typical delivery trip time is a little bit less than 20 minutes. So that is the delivery from the nearest store, and then the consumer, typically in the app that they ordered, then they get a text message, or they have a button where they can say, "Oh, unlock the robot." So the robot's normally locked. It's not that anyone can just go and open the robot.
Yeah. How much can it actually store? What is it? A few bags worth of groceries?
Exactly. It's about 2 or 3 grocery bags.
Okay.
It takes about as much as a person can comfortably carry from the store. So there are some larger orders. If there is a larger order, potentially we could dispatch multiple robots.
That sounds exciting.
That's possible. But our typical orders are smaller.
Yeah. And how have consumers responded? I can imagine, especially, I have young kids, they would be thrilled at the idea of a robot turning up and delivering their groceries. And also I imagine it's a pretty steep learning curve because what you're doing is so unique and there's no one else really out there that's doing that. So I don't know, is the challenge raising that awareness, that initial awareness, and giving them the confidence to place that first order?
This is actually very, very easy. Our robots are super well received by the consumers. You mentioned the children. Yes, absolutely. Children really love our robots. But it's not just the novelty of robots. Ultimately, what we are doing is a completely practical, everyday service that people use day in, day out. We have lots of customers in UK that have placed 500 orders with us over the years. 500 orders. Like our top customers are like 1,000 orders and more. So it's not a novelty of doing just something cool. It's a completely practical service of people wanting to get stuff and getting delivered by the robot. And also in Finland, for example, we are working with the largest grocer in Finland. Our Finland deployment is actually larger than our UK deployment, even though Finland is a 10x smaller country than UK. But in Finland, our customers, our retailers, only same-day delivery option.
Okay.
So it's not that you kind of can choose like a human courier or a robot. No, you only get the robot. If you want the same day, you only get the robot. So this is completely mass market. It's not a special kind of delivery. It's just the delivery that exists.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned what you're doing internationally, because I know here in the UK you have a partnership with the Co-op, and you're delivering to customers in Leeds, Wakefield, Greater Manchester, Cambridgeshire, Northamptonshire, and Milton Keynes. You also have a partnership with Grubhub in the US, where you're delivering to college campuses. You have a partnership with Bolt in Estonia, Wolt in Finland, as you just alluded to, and the delivery hero company Foodora in Sweden. What have you learned from all of these partnerships, and in which markets are most advanced when it comes to robot delivery?
Mm-hmm. Nowadays, actually, there is a lot of conviction among retailers and also delivery apps that robots are the future. So we have come a long way, or it has been a journey for me building this company for 10 years. When we started out, we really needed to convince people that this is going to work. People were skeptical. People thought it has so many obstacles and so many things that we need to solve and overcome. We also knew that there's a lot of obstacles for us to overcome in building this company, but we knew that we are going to overcome all of these obstacles and we are going to solve all of the potential pitfalls and problems. And we did. So now, 10 years later, we have built this into a completely functioning system and service, which is easy to integrate for retailers, and it's easy to operate at scale. So scale is important because there are a lot of robots and drones and other things which sound cool to people, but lots of people think that, okay, this is like a test, or this is a pilot, or this is something where okay, some deliveries are happening, but it's not really mass market. We are actually mass market. We are actually operating in hundreds of locations. We serve hundreds of grocery stores right now. We have learned that when we make it really easy for retailers to integrate, and also the commercial terms which are favorable to them, then they're willing to take this completely to scale. Not a small-scale operation. We can scale it to hundreds and thousands of grocery store and serving millions of customers.
The last mile is a difficult nut to crack. It's typically the most expensive and the least efficient part of the supply chain. And I've seen a number of estimates flying around, but I think most people would agree that it accounts for around half of total logistics costs. So I completely understand the motivation behind automating that process, and especially in the current climate where retailers are facing so many cost headwinds. So as you said, we are seeing a lot of experimentation here with drones, with micro fulfillment hubs and electric bikes, autonomous vehicles. How do your robots help to reduce these costs for retailers?
Mm-hmm. So we have developed our robots to be so efficient that it is, for the retailer, it is more efficient than using human delivery. And indeed, operating an e-commerce solution for like a grocery retailer, it's something that everybody wants to do, but typically for retailers, it is hard to make the ends meet with that. So every bit of cost saving and efficiency improvement is important. And we help with the costs. We also help with the customer acquisition because we generate a lot of PR for our retailers, and it gives a completely new way of engaging with their customers. Like very often the retailers do not have a good way to get onto the front page news. But with our robots, they actually can. So typically when we have deployed in some country or some region, then our customers tell us that they get so much positive press. So there's a press value, there's marketing value, they get more customers, they get more incremental orders due to the robot, the innovative robot solution, and they get cost saving.
I want to ask you about the design of your robots. We've sort of touched on this already, but they're very cute, right? Kids love them. They're very cute. They're not the kind of scary robots that, are sometimes portrayed in the media. I think you guys have done a brilliant job of showing a softer, less scary side to all of this automation. And I just want to know, how intentional was this when you were designing them? And do you think there will be a point where it just becomes the norm and that novelty wears off?
It was very intentional. The design of the robot, we had a lot of choices when we started this 10 years ago. And we worked with a Finnish design agency called Ivan. And we did a lot of visual design ideas and workshops. There's a lot of choices, actually. Do we want to build the robot to look like a person? Or do we want to make the robot look like a sci-fi futuristic spaceship? Or do we want to make the robot look like an animal? Should it be more like a Disney-like animal, sort of this keep smiling, type of look? And we settled actually of none of the above. We settled onto this neutral, friendly, non-threatening look that is modest. It's not grabbing attention, and that is easy for people to accept. The non-threatening is an important one. Nobody thinks that our robots are threatening.
Because they're not very big. They only come up to about knee height, right?
Yes, they are about knee height, and that's about the space that you need to fit a couple of grocery bags. And they're not very heavy, and they travel at slightly faster than pedestrian speed. And the design is very, very important in this.
Yeah. And just to go back to the topic of costs, how long does it take for one of your robots to become profitable?
It's actually immediate for the retailer because the retailers actually do not need to buy robots from us. We own and operate the fleet, typically. The retailer is paying us, like there's no upfront cost necessarily for the retailer. That's typically also how things work with the human-based delivery, in that the retailer pays the couriers effectively, and that is like a monthly or daily or hourly, but it's not a big upfront investment. We have made it very easy to integrate technically. There's also technical integration. There's operational process integration. We have made tools for all of this. There is analytics dashboards. There's a lot of stuff that we have created to make it easy for the retailers, and it's typically a weeks-long process to integrate, or maybe a few months-long process to integrate. It's not years.
I want to ask you about the proliferation of choice that we have today as consumers. We've seen an explosion in the number of e-commerce delivery options, from same-day and green delivery to lockers and curbside pickup. How does Starship position itself within this crowded landscape of customer expectations for speed, reliability, cost? Or I guess another way to put it is, what is it that makes robotic delivery stand out in a world where so many models now coexist?
First, we are a solution that actually works in terms of unit economics. Some of the solutions are not working very well in unit economics terms. Another unique thing is that you mentioned, proliferation of choice. The proliferation of choice exists in London traffic zones 1 to 3.
We're in a bubble.
But in small towns, like for retailers that want to serve, that are serving nationwide, there is not so much choice. There's not so much choice in delivery platforms or delivery infrastructure or human couriers in the smaller places. One of the retailers we have talked to, said that, we operate nationwide. We have 1,000 locations. In 200 of these locations, we have delivery, but in the 800, we do not have. So the one advantage of robots is that robots' unit economics does not depend on the density of the city.
Which is typically crucial for a grocery e-commerce player.
Exactly. And why is the density crucial for an e-commerce player for delivery costs? It's because with people, you effectively need to pay the courier even if the courier is idle. So a person who is not doing anything because there's no orders costs money. A robot that's not doing anything does not cost money.
As you say, we're in a London bubble. We have everything at our fingertips. We're spoiled for choice. But in rural locations, if the focus in the future, in the near future, is going to be drones or delivery robots, do you think the kind of coexistence of those two things might accelerate adoption?
Definitely, there is a coexistence of different technologies. I think there will be people doing deliveries. There will be robots on the ground doing deliveries in the same city and location. And I do believe that drones will also work for doing deliveries. But they have completely different sweet spots and completely different pros and cons. So the drone is very fast, but has limited carrying capacity. So for grocery, I think drone is not as good as a ground robot. The unit economics, flying up in the air, is harder to make work than it is on the ground. Just like air transport in general is more expensive than having ground transport, typically. And drones are harder to make safe, to get regulatory clearance. Nowhere in the world are drones operating at scale. And I think drones are not quite there in that development curve yet, but I'm sure they will be.
Yeah. And You've kind of started to touch on this. Not only are drones more expensive, but they're also probably less sustainable. And so I wanted to ask you your views on sustainability, because there's this recurring debate within the retail community about what's actually more sustainable. Is it better to shop in store or get your groceries or products delivered to home? And I know there's a lot of variables here. So are you driving to the store? Are you riding your bike? Is the delivery the only one for miles, or is it one of many in a densely populated area? So it's really hard to kind of quantify it. But I'd love to get your thoughts on this, and specifically the role of automation when it comes to sustainability.
So it is actually very easy to quantify the environmental sustainability or energy use of our robots. We know exactly how much it is. It is less than 10 grams of CO2 per delivery, because the robots use much less energy than any other mode of transport. It's in fact less energy than a person walking.
Less energy than a person walking?
Less energy than a person
Really?
walking, right? Okay,
Wow.
so it's not obviously the person doesn't get charged, from the wall, but still you can count actually the energy. So the energy use is actually less than a person walking, and it's less than a person on the bicycle. So you could say that our robots is the most environmentally friendly way you could have, because this is the lightest CO2 load in terms of the miles driven. Plus, it is that we do deliveries from the convenience grocery stores, not from big, fulfillment centers, but the nearest convenience grocery store that you have. And that is typically half a mile away.
Yeah,
or
that
less
are,
than a
it's
mile
already
away.
in your community, right? You've got that proximity to
Yes.
the home. So we're recording this during London Tech Week, and just yesterday, one of your robots rolled down Downing Street to meet the Prime Minister Keir Starmer. If the Prime Minister was sitting here with us right now, what would you ask him?
I would ask him to help implement his own AI action plan, which calls for easier regulation of technology adoption. And specifically, I would actually like the UK government to clarify the legal status of robots on pavement, just like it has been done in a lot of other countries, including Finland, where we have bigger scale operation than in UK right now, or to devolve powers to do so to the local councils. Because the regulatory clarity is important. I would want to invest in UK and roll out our service in UK much wider than it is right now. We are covering a couple of locations in UK, but only a couple of locations. Our service is valuable to the UK retailers, and I would like regulatory clarity to invest heavily in UK and to transform the last mile delivery in UK.
If we imagine it's 2035, Elon Musk thinks that robots are going to be babysitting our kids in the future. I'm not sure about that, but I'm curious to get your views on where you see the opportunity for humanoid robots going forward.
I think there is a lot of excitement about humanoid robots right now, but in the way that I have built companies, I think of the practical solution that we can implement and that can work cost effectively and where all the practical aspects are solved. It is easy, or would be easy, if I were mainly in the business of storytelling, to just tell nice stories about how my robots are going to do this and the robots are going to do that, but not actually having a practical solution that works also in terms of the costs. I'm a robotics technologist. I know how much a humanoid robot actually costs. And it's
too expensive for babysitting?
It's too expensive for babysitting right now, like by a long shot.
Mm. And there's a question of whether we want that as well, I suppose.
Yes,
a societal aspect.
That as well. But overall, I'm in the business of building a practical solution for retailers right now that actually works, that people want to use, not due to the reasons of getting a little bit of PR, but for a practical solution that they want to roll out to all of their store and or restaurant footprint.
Yeah, solving genuine problems
Yes.
that exist right now for retailers.
Yes.
So with that in mind, I'd like to ask you one final question. What's your message to retailers listening in right now? What advice do you have for them as they struggle to stay relevant in this rapidly evolving industry?
I would give them the advice to use our services and to roll out robot delivery and autonomous delivery. Like, you don't need to wait to automate. The time to do it is right now.
Ahti, thank you so much for joining us today and giving us such a fascinating look into autonomous delivery. It's clear that the last mile is changing rapidly, and it's been great to hear how Starship is navigating everything from tech to regulation and customer expectations. So thank you again for your time and your insights.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for listening to Retail Disrupted. If you enjoyed this episode and would like to support the podcast, please leave a rating or review or share it with others. It really makes a difference.